Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 7th episode of the PvP Live podcast. I'm your host, Jason, accompanied by fellow PvP Live staff members, Aridin, Davis, and Paul. And today we have a very special guest that wrote an excellent post on balance issues in Arena, Mohammad. Mohammad, how are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Excellent. We're excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Danny, Aridin, how are you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing? Check out the new digs we got going on here.
I was about to bring this up. Yeah, our new layout. We have a new graphics designer, and he did an excellent job at redesigning some stuff for us. So this is just the start of it. But yeah, it looks super. Davis, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. How about yourself? How are you doing, Jason?
I am doing excellent, and I'm pretty excited that both me and Davis discussed earlier that we are going to get haircuts together tomorrow, and they are going to be exactly the same. So I'm pretty pumped about that. So hopefully next Sunday you guys will have a little excitement, like anyone actually cares. Paul, going over to you. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good, and your haircut is going to look like Aridin's wife's haircut, remember?
Yeah, that's what the
exactly what we're going for.
That's what we're going for.
That's what the goal is. So jumping right into the first topic of the day, on Friday, as every Friday, or at least for the past 3 or 4 Fridays, we PvP Live, we throw a tournament called Friday Night Face-Offs, and that goes on at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. CET. You guys can do the rest of the conversions in your head. Last Friday, we had 2 awesome teams, House Tully versus Team Tesoro. Team Tesoro is a Russian team, and they went 2-0 to win the Friday Night Face-Off. It was actually a pretty exciting match, and Paul was there with me. Paul, just starting with you, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened in the match and how it broke down?
Well, ultimately, it kind of went as we expected it. The Russian team were, with all due respect to House Tully's team, they were probably much more experienced and probably just at a higher level than House Tully were. So, and being fair, their comp was better again. So it kind of went as we expected. But I think the House Tully just didn't learn from the first match. To be honest, they lasted much longer in the second match, but they still ended up doing the same thing, going for the same target, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah,
they could have. They could have just changed it up a bit and tried something new, but it's up to them.
Danny, you were there and behind the scenes during the tournament on Friday. What were your opinions? What was your outlook on the 2 matches that we saw?
I thought. Well, first of all, I want to say if anybody hears any background noise, my kids are playing a very exciting game on the iPad right now, and they're loving it. So nothing I can really do about that. But I thought they were good matches. The first one, it went a little quick. It was kind of reminiscent of the week before, but then the second match was much better. It looked a lot better from both sides, and I don't know. I think House Tully, which was the FMP, just kind of maybe. I don't know, like just kind of tunneled a little bit, or had their one target they wanted to go after and just went for it, and eventually it ended up in their defeat, I think. But it was a good match nonetheless. Really well played by both teams.
Yeah, like you said, the first match went by really quickly, and the second match kind of lasted a little bit longer, and Team Tesoro was kind of putting the hate train on Snuggly, their feral druid, the whole time, and he went down kind of quickly in the first match. Davis, did you get a chance to watch the Friday Night Face-Off? Were you there? I can't remember.
I did.
Okay.
I did get a chance to watch it. Yeah, it was pretty much the same as everyone else has said. The games went quickly, but I think, to be honest, it's like the comps they were playing. Like, we should expect the games to go quickly. Like, I don't think. I mean, an FMP is never going to play a 15-minute game. I don't think. I mean, very rarely.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
So like they either go in and win or they don't. And unfortunately, they didn't appear to pull it off this time. But they were good games and well played to everyone who took part. And Russia too strong, apparently.
Yeah, it was certainly an exciting Friday Night Face-Off. And again, every Friday we hold a small tournament, which we're hoping to grow very shortly into something very big. But Friday Night Face-Offs take place on Twitch here on this channel every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. at CET. Again, please just go to PvP-Live, bookmark the site, follow us here on Twitch, and follow all of us here on Twitter. Our names are below, somewhere down there. Anyways, moving on.
JD mentioned Russians too strong, and for some reason now I'm from the United States, as most of you could probably tell. I don't have much interaction with Russians on a rarely ever, honestly, but I just imagined Rocky IV when he said that, and just the high tech training facility, like
Right.
I don't know.
That's exactly what it's like. They've all got like.
Well, the Russian team is the Russian team's one of the only sponsored teams left in WoW, so who knows? Maybe they have their own gaming house.
So they have the high tech facility. The the American teams, they just train in the woods, lifting logs. I just wanted to throw that in there. I don't know. Russians too strong.
Anyways, moving on. We had a pretty. I don't know. It is kind of historical. I don't want to build it up too much, but yesterday, Blizzard actually held a PvP player summit at their headquarters. And
was that yesterday or a couple days ago?
Friday. I'm sorry, Friday. Not yesterday.
Friday,
yeah, Friday. 2 days ago. And this is kind of unheard of, and it's really big news because basically what they did was they invited a bunch of huge players, top-rated players, streamers, to their headquarters to discuss game balance and basically, I guess, what's going to be coming up in 6.0. Hoodrich, Risen, Venruki, Tosin, Talbadar, Soto, Rekful, Natagas Collective, Athlete, Vanguards, and Olivia Grace from WoW Insider were all there to discuss PvP balance, basically. We haven't really heard anything yet as far as what came out of that, but I'm sure we will, at least by BlizzCon. Aridin, starting with you, that's like I said, it's a pretty big announcement that, Blizzard is kind of bringing in, I don't want to say professional, but high-rated, well-known players into their offices to discuss. What do you think they talked about?
I just I want to highlight, first of all, they specifically stated that it was not for balance reasons. It wasn't like a class representation or anything like that.
Right.
From what I understand, they wanted to show these players some things going forward with 6.0 and beyond, and what they're planning on doing in the future for WoW and PvP, and I think esports ties in a lot with this as well. And they wanted to get the impression of these players who really do dedicate a lot of their time to playing and really honing their skills and some of the top players in the world at the game. So, and the fact that most of them, I don't think all of them, but a lot of them do have tournament experience. So they would be good people to speak to as far as moving forward with esports, I think. So.
Aaron, do you think that they could be possibly thinking about hiring some of these players? I know there was no talk about that, but I mean, do you think maybe they're going to bring them on the team to try to improve Arena or PvP in general?
I think if that were the case, it wouldn't have been so open and out there that they were having this summit. Yeah. I think it would have been a little more hush hush, and then later on they would have announced maybe. But it's not. I mean, it's not a far-fetched idea to hear of players being hired by Blizzard to come work on the game. I mean,
right.
It's happened.
Yeah, Lore was pretty much the last one, but he's on the PvE scene. But
but I mean, even way before that, you have I believe his name is Jeff Kaplan. He was an EQ EverQuest raider, and came in. Yeah. So it happens. I mean, players do come in to work on the game, but I don't think that's what this was about. I think it was just getting input and presenting some things for the community.
Yeah, I think it's a really great step forward for PvP in general, basically. Davis, going over to you, talking about the PvP Live Player Summit, or PvP Live, PvP Player Summit at Blizzard. What do you think they were talking about? What do you think went down?
I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting. I mean, I think they probably touched balance, and discussed it a little bit. I think in general, maybe what they were trying to get from the players was say, okay, so this is our idea behind what we want PvP to be and feel like, how we want to do rating and stuff like that. Like, this is our plans going forward. Maybe they were like, this is our kind of general idea behind each class and what their role should be and what they should be able to do and what they shouldn't be able to do. And so maybe they just kind of they were just trying to get opinions back from people and say, look, this is what we think we're going to do. What do you guys say about that? So hopefully they'll have given some good feedback and we can have a more balanced game or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just something more. I don't know. It would be interesting to see what effects this has on the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it is like I believe going forward and possibly trying to re-enter the esports scene, I mean, balance obviously would be a big part of that because I mean, you can't really have a competitive game without somewhat balance, like some semblance of balance. So I'm sure they did touch on it, but that definitely was not the main reason they were there.
Yeah, like definitely. Like I don't think they were talking about like individual class balance. Like, what do you think
Right,
about ambush and what do you think about mortal strike and stuff like that? I think they were talking more about like maybe I can't even think of the right word, and it's a really simple word, but the
flow, like the
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
flow's not the word I was looking for, but it'll work.
Just
Yeah.
overall, yeah.
yeah.
They're looking at the kind of flow and like maybe they spoke about how much CC should be available and stuff like that, rather than specific classes and what abilities they have. They spoke about in the game in general, how many interrupts should there be between all the classes, how many fears should there be in the game, things like that. I think they might have spoken about that and stuff, but I don't think they'll have spoken about hey, what do you think about the percentage modifier on attack power on this spell and stuff like that? I don't think.
Before we get down to Paul, I just want to bring something up that Aridin just said, and I'm going to ask Aridin and Davis the same question. Basically, I mean, do you guys think that this is, the beginning of the entrance of Blizzard back into competitive esports? Do you think that's the beginning of it, Aridin?
I think they would. I think it would be kind of a dumb move not to try to get into that. I mean, we all saw, and we discussed this earlier. We all saw the league championship finals at the Staples Center, and I mean, just how big of a impact that was for the esports scene in general. I mean, and it's only going to get bigger. So, and for a company like Blizzard to have so many games that are revolved around multiplayer experiences, we'll get to this a little later, but the Heroes of the Storm, which is another MOBA that they're developing. I mean, yeah, I absolutely think they're going to try to get back into esports for sure.
Davis, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think this is the beginning of them? Is basically World of Warcraft getting back into the competitive esports scene?
I'm not sure about that. So in the past, I remember, I think it was Ghostcrawler or Holinka that said, look, we realize a lot of people want WoW to be an esport and stuff like that, but we don't think it really has the potential to be that. And we're happy to let you have like rated systems and stuff like that. We're happy to still let you come to BlizzCon and compete, but in general, we don't really think it's going for the pro scene. But maybe they changed their mind. They saw the Staples Center and they were like, we can do that. Come on, guys.
We want to be on stage.
Before we get too into this conversation, I definitely want to let the other guys talk. I don't want to take all the screen time, but I mean, look at it this way, okay? You have League of Legends, which is, I don't even know the numbers, like 36 million unique players or something, like some obscene number, right? That is just a multiplayer game. That's all there is to it. You just go in, you play other people, and there's 36 million people that do it. So why couldn't WoW, way later in its life cycle, why could the game not survive just based on PvP if they put a lot of focus into it and came out with new seasons and ladders and they really spent a lot of resources there far after they stopped making raids? I think it could still, if they put the work in, be a successful game just based on PvP.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Aridin, that's talking way in the future, I think, right?
Right, of course it is. But I'm saying like a game. It's been proven, not with just League, but Call of Duty, StarCraft. I mean, games can survive for a very long time just on their multiplayer component, player versus player.
Yeah, Paul. Actually, going down to you real quick. You didn't get a chance to talk basically yet. What are your overall thoughts on the PvP player summit at Blizzard?
Well, Well, I have a few things to add on to both what Jason and Davis have said. First of
Mhm.
all, I totally agree with what Eridan said, and I said this a long time ago. WoW will be survived by its PvP community. There's literally no doubt about that. When content stops being developed for the game, people will still play Arena. I think that's quite obvious to most people, at least in my opinion. It's like with the PvP summit, I think I kind of agree with you. This is kind of Blizzard's way of going, okay, StarCraft is becoming much less popular in esports because of like games like League, which is just taking all of viewers. Dota as well. I think wasn't one League tournament nearly had 1 million viewers?
Oh yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's like prime time TV levels.
Yeah.
That's huge for a video game tournament. That's like monstrously huge. Now the thing is, Blizzard knows how popular esports is becoming, and it's becoming massive. I don't think there's any doubt that Blizzard's next MMO, Titan, will have a component in it which is an esport. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So why don't they make WoW an esport now so that they can work on this for the next game?
And learn from it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Learn the mistakes that they made in WoW, because there was a lot of them, and then say, okay, this didn't work, that did, so let's bring this in. Let's build it from the ground up. They've reset the whole game. Why did they reset the whole game? Were they just not happy with the game itself, or did they think, okay, we can add in this component which would make the game far easier to view, stuff like that, and then give the next game a bigger chance to be the huge success that WoW could have been. I still think WoW has good potential to be a esport, but there has to be a lot of changes. Like, there are so many things that need to change. Just a straight up example here, I think the game can be hugely more balanced if they just removed a lot of abilities from PvP. You don't even have to remove them from the game if they want to keep them for PvE. But there's just too much bloat in the game. There's too much of everything. There's too many interrupts, there's too much CC, there's too many Novas, there's too many roots. There's just too much everything. And I don't know how good a game can be with that much stuff. It's like, I have a real life friend of mine started playing the game a couple of months ago, hadn't played since vanilla WoW, and I'm like doing arena with him, and I'm like telling him so many different things that he has to keep track of that it just becomes too much. And eventually he just stopped playing. I'm like, why don't you play anymore? And it's like, well, there's just too much stuff for me to pay attention to. He has to learn his own class, and then every other class, and then how they work with others. It's just too difficult for someone moving into the game now to suddenly pick up. There's just too much of everything. So I think if they work on that, sort of cut down the abilities, which I think that might have been part of this PvP summit, just saying, well, what do you think? We know there's too much stuff in the game. How can we make it easier to view? And I think the URI that Vadrak made, Arena Live, that's very good for that. But there's still just too much stuff that you have to pay attention to. Like, I noticed that on the Friday Night Live, when we're like trying to analyze the game, you have so much to watch out for that you just miss stuff inevitably.
Yeah.
And that's something they want to remove. That's something they want to improve on.
Yeah,
and that's something they can improve.
Yeah, the commentators, I mean, you guys do an excellent job, but it almost sounds like you guys are like auctioneers. I mean, because you guys, there are so many different abilities, and someone actually just said in Twitch chat here that it's probably hard for a lot of people to understand what's going on during a live tournament with the commentators explaining everything going on, because there's such a high learning curve to get into, at least high-level PvP. So, did anyone else want to touch on the PvP summit before I go to the next one? I didn't know if anyone else had anything to say.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I basically agree with Aridin when he says it's more of a showcase to the players what's going to be coming up in 6.0. I just wanted to add that what Paul said about games lasting is a good point, because like I can still walk into an internet cafe and still see people playing Counter-Strike 1.3, and that's a decade or more old.
Yep.
Basically, what I feel about these players being invited, it's a step in the right direction. I mean, video game tournaments have been around since video games were around. I mean, the first big tournament was, I think, Sword Quest, the Atari game. They had a huge tournament for that. And
even before that, arcade cabinets,
Oh yeah, arcade games, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like the Atari came first, the Sword Quest, and then the arcade cabinets really caught hype with Street Fighter. And even then, like 1992, they were still getting players from the community,
Here we go,
like
tangent.
players from the
It's all right.
community.
Not just you. We do this all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like players from the community to go to Capcom headquarters and help them out with the game.
Yeah.
And that really benefited. I mean, like Street Fighter 2 lasted for a good 10 years. Street Fighter 3 lasted for another 10 years, and like we're now in Street Fighter 4 and it's going to be there for another 10 years. The thing with WoW is they're a bit late, but it's a step in the right direction. And like it's only too late if you have no subscribers, but you still have I'm not sure, but nowhere less than 9 million subscribers worldwide to WoW. And the game isn't going to die just because they don't pay attention to esports now. They can see what other people are doing, and they can play a catch-up game by not making their mistakes, but learning from what they did right.
Yeah.
That's basically how I
I
feel.
mean,
about it.
worst case scenario, esports can only revitalize the game. They're not going to kill it.
Yeah.
They're not going to make
yeah.
it any worse.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go down from where we're at by introducing a new focus to the game. It's not going to happen. So it's worth a shot.
Well, just to add on slightly of just some points that I forgot to make. There still are live Brood War tournaments for StarCraft 1. That's over 2 years. That's over a year old now, and there's a brand new game for it. They still broadcast them live in Korea. You can still watch them on TV in Korea. So like, an old game doesn't necessarily mean it still can't be an esport. And one last thing I wanted to make about the whole speculation about them hiring players. They have done this in the past, not just like lore and such, but they have hired PvP players in the past. Like, two examples are Nocturne and SEK. They were both sponsored players in TBC and early RAF. Both of them were hired around, I think it was like season 7 or something. And and I know, for example, Nocturne still works for them. So there isn't like, it's like definitely not that they might hire some of these players, because they have done it in the past, although I'm not 100% sure whether they will. But that, as you said, it's definitely a step in the right direction that they're doing this. And I think, just personally, I would say that Halinka joining Blizzard has added this focus to PvP, and that can only be a good thing. Like, all these little things, even if ultimately they don't.
Before Holinka came around, I mean, it was nobody that was really in charge of just PvP.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
just kind
There
of
was just nothing.
yeah.
Right. Just
I
the
think there's a lot
designers, and that's
more
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot more that Blizzard can do. There's still a lot more that they can work on, but it actually looks like they're doing it now, or at least, they're thinking about these things. Whereas in the past, it was just like, oh, there's a new arena season coming up. Let's see what's strong. Okay, nerf that, and that's it. There was no thought about PvP at all. It was a total afterthought. And now it seems like there's new focus on PvP, which is only a good thing for us. So.
Absolutely. Kind of touching base on the same topic, basically, I kind of want to go right to Mohammad here. He posted a great post. It's titled PvP Balance, My Thoughts on a Better Approach. And it's decently lengthy. It's very in-depth. And he goes into bringing up a lot of great points. Mohammad, do you want to just give maybe, a brief explanation of what your post entitles? And then we'll just kind of have like a roundtable discussion and ask you questions and everything. So.
All right, sure. Basically, I just recently came back to WoW, and just looking at all the history of what's going on through WoW, I just felt that the biggest problem was that the development team just had too ambitious of a goal when they were trying to balance the game. They wanted everyone to fit in with, like, every class to fit in with each other. And I felt that was kind of blindsiding them on some of the issues, or a different way of how to look at balance. So basically, throughout the article, I try to explain what I think being overpowered is, and how to simplify the game into a way that it could be easier to balance. So I suggest a general meta game of the 3v3 arena, where the basic goal is to get the class composition is to be, a melee class, a caster class, and a healer class. And that's just generally what I discussed throughout it, and how I feel that it might improve balance. Towards the end of the article, I taper off into some of my own thoughts on basically healing, why players try to argue unobjectively about their class, and that's generally the gist of my post.
Paul, I know you originally found Mohammed's post. Do you have any, direct questions for him or comments about his post?
Well, not just like a lot of stuff about his post and a lot of stuff about balance in general, but like I kind of agree with him in the sense that they have tried too hard to make every spec viable, which kind of has been a problem. Whereas it's like they tried to make, say, like fire mages viable, and then when you put like a fire mage with another caster, it becomes so much stronger. And it's like, I mean, you can make every spec viable, but you don't have to give every spec the tools, if you know what I mean. You can say, okay, this class has these tools, this other class has these ones. Put them together makes them both stronger. But when you give every class like instant CC, you give every class self-healing, you give every class of like a lot of classes have a mortal strike effect now. When you combine them together, that's when it becomes too strong.
Right.
So it's like, if they went back to, I mean, let's be honest, the game right now is probably the most balanced it's ever been. So we're certainly not saying that it's worse now. But I felt that kind of like in the Burning Crusade and Wrath, where classes complemented each other well. Like if you put, say, like a warrior with a warlock, they complemented each other well. Whereas now, you don't really need to do that. You can put, say, a warrior with almost any class and it still works fine. You can put like a warlock with any class, it still works fine. I think if they just kind of went back to where melee complemented casters, and then that's kind of where the metagame would be. Like, you have no problem with melee cleaves and caster cleaves being viable, that's fine. But they shouldn't be... When they're so strong, that's when I feel that the game's at its worst. From a player point of view and from a spectator point of view. Like when you watch high-level caster cleave mirrors, they're probably the worst games to view, even though they're probably the highest skill level, because the games just don't end. They go on forever because they have so many tools to live.
Well, I mean that ties into the esports and making it a good spectator
exactly.
sport as well.
Right.
You know, you want
Paul, actually,
kind of...
Paul, do you think the Blizzard's kind of diluting balance by trying to make everyone happy? Do you think it would be better if they just concentrated on one spec per class for PvP?
Well, I mean, I agree that they should maybe do that to make the game better, but I can understand why they don't want to do it. Personally, I'm a warrior. I've played warrior for 8 years, but arms has never been my favorite spec ever. I've always been Fury. I loved Fury from vanilla up all through it, but I've never been able to play it. Season 5 and Season 9 were the only times that Fury was somewhat viable. Other than that, it's never, and I've accepted that because Arms was fine. Arms worked in Arena. But other classes, but Blizzard were just like, okay, mages want to play Arcane, they want to play Frost. Shamans want to play Alien Enhancement, and I can understand why they want to do that, and I can understand those people who play those classes saying, I want to play the spec that I want to play, because that's what I find most fun. Mm-hmm. But it's fine for them to do that. It's fine for them to make them viable, as long as they don't give them every tool that they have. They don't need 2 or 3 defensive cooldowns. They don't all need instant CC. You give certain classes abilities, and then you sort of bounce them around being with another class. It's like Blizzard have tried to make every class their own kind of work on their own sort of thing, if you know what I mean. And then when you put them together, it be just kind of like...
It's just too much. It's overkill.
It exponentially increases. If one class has an instant CC in a comp, that's fine. When 2 have it, it exponentially becomes better. And when 3 has it, you kind of getting out of control at this point.
And all 3 have an interrupt in a
then they all have
break
an interrupt.
Right.
Yeah, it's going from what I just said before. There's too much stuff in the game. I mean, playing a healer in Arena, for anyone that does it, like, I don't know how people still play it, because you don't play your class for so long. You just sit there and CC for long periods of time. And it's kind of like, that's not fun to watch. It's not fun to play, to be quite honest. So I just think the Blizzard need to get back to doing that. Stop making every class work on their own. Make classes work with each other fine. So, well, I mean, and... sorry. And this comes, just one more last point I want to make. This comes from buffs as well. Like, melee buffs generally don't affect casters. Like, for example, I have a warrior. I use Battle Shout or Commanding Shout. Commanding Shout works fine, yeah, because it increases HP. But if I play with a Warlock, they already give themselves the HP buff. I give myself an attack power buff. Why would a Warlock play with me over, say, an Ellie Shaman that gives them a mastery buff that's like 20 to 30% of their damage?
Or just have best of both worlds and play with a Resto Shaman. You get.
Yeah, that of course works now. But, yeah, but it's like buffs should work where they affect each other. Like if a melee has a buff, it should help casters too. And this would obviously that's not going to change the game. It's not going to make suddenly everyone wants to play melee caster healer, but it improves it. And if you take away say like a mastery buff from say an Ellie Shaman, then it's like okay, you can still play Ellie like Warlock, and that'll still work. But you encourage people to play melee caster healer, which you generally don't find a lot of. I mean, you generally run into melee cleaves and caster cleaves a lot more, in my opinion. So,
Paul, you've brought up a lot about how basically there's so many different abilities to play, basically. So, what is your main a warrior? What's your main, Paul? I'm sorry.
Yeah, warrior.
Okay, so
warrior for 8 years now.
Oh, perfect. So here's a good question for you. So, do you think that they should? Is a possible solution? Do you think they should possibly take away some abilities from certain character or certain classes? If so,
yeah.
What abilities should they take away from a warrior?
The warriors don't need disrupting shout for one. I don't know why any class in this game has more than one interrupt. That's just insane. Like we want to go back to the game where casters have to cast, but how can you say well, mages, warlocks, elementals, they should have to cast when it's impossible. Mm-hmm. You have 2 melee training you, and both of them have 2 interrupts. What are you supposed to do about that? You just can't do that. The same with things like mass spell reflect. Like personally, I like the fact that warriors have utility because we haven't had a lot of it for a long time. So I'm kind of mixed about stuff like this. I like having that, but if I look at it from a balance point of view, why mass spell reflect probably shouldn't be there. It should be something like if you say you use the mass spell reflect, it takes up 1 charge from one person, and then the 2 reflects are still on the other. It should remove it instantly.
It should at least come at there should be a choice. Remember when they did this whole talent thing? It was about making choices.
Yeah,
and there's really no choice. You just take mass spell reflect.
This is one of the things that infuriates me about one of the warrior talents, Safeguard. And I said this on the Warrior podcast that I did with Tobias Hildegard a couple months ago. The one thing that infuriates me about this talent is the fact that the root break before this patch was on the talent. When you took the talent, it put it on intervene. Safeguard has this like an amazing ability for 20% damage reduction on 30-second cooldown. That's an amazing ability. I don't think people realize just how good that is, but you couldn't use it. You had to save it for the root break. You just couldn't use it for any other reason. And now they took that off the root break so that you could use others, but they put it onto intercept again, so that if I try to take Safeguard, I have the exact same problem as I had before. Why it just doesn't give you a different sort of like ability that does those 2 things separately, so I can actually use that. Right now it's like you can't use Vigilance is decent, but it's not something you would take because it's just not at the same level of the other 2. And Safeguard, as I said, it has its issues that makes it just makes mass spell reflect too good. There isn't really a choice there. It's like you said, the talent cheese was supposed to be about choice, but there isn't a choice. Right. There is like a clear better choice in almost every trait. So
and that's the same for a lot of classes. And I actually want to say that I think we're at this pretty large crossroads or turning point in WoW where I wouldn't be surprised if next expansion or even at BlizzCon they announce item level squish, ability bloat removal. Like it's kind of like it's gotten to this point where players are like asking for it. Like in the past 2 years, 5 years ago it was give me these abilities and we want more abilities. Now people are like, please just make this game simpler again.
Right.
Like. Yeah. And so it's interesting, and especially the fact that Mohammad brings it up in his post, as somebody who's come back to the game, I'm sure. When was the last time you played, Mohammad? I think you mentioned it.
Yeah, the last time I played was around the first 2 or 3 weeks of Mist of Pandaria, and then sort of like I got busy with my university studies and so on.
So last time you seriously played, when was that?
The last time would be about season 7. So when I was.
So I'm sure back then you remember people saying, well, well, this class has this, I want that too, and this class has that, I want that too, you know. So
Yeah.
over the course of Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria, well, we got it all, you know. I think you mentioned you played a Ret back then, right?
Yeah, I bet
Well,
like
remember
throughout.
Rets never had an interrupt, you know. They wanted an interrupt. Now they got it. Now every class has an interrupt. So
Yeah.
so yeah, it's gone from we want more to now people are like we really want less. Like this we were wrong. We were wrong. We didn't
It's
want
too
more.
much. It's too
Yeah.
much.
So I think I would not be surprised if at BlizzCon they announced that they're completely reworking the way the classes are with their abilities and scaling back the gear a bit. I think it's time.
Davis,
It'll be a good
PvE is one of two.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I'm sorry, Mohammed, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I had a suggestion for this kind of point. We have three general archetypes of classes in this game. We got healers, we got melee, and we got casters. Now, my idea would be like, or what I was thinking of was that what if these three archetypes had a role to fulfill? For example, like in a totally different game, not specifically WoW, we can say like the goal of the melee class would be to get in on the other team, ruin their position, and generally have the kicks and the interrupts. Whereas the casters would be uh, would be more of a defensive type of class or type of archetype where they would help their healer out. They would do the big damage as well, and they would have more of the range or more of the general CC. And like if we thought about those archetypes in such a manner, like then we take warriors or rogues or death knights, and they would be the melee classes. Now we say, well, the goal of this archetype is to ruin position, like I said, and dish out the interrupts. Well, how could we have death knights or warriors fulfill this goal, but yet still be different and interesting than a death knight or a rogue? I mean, I think if we take it from that kind of perspective, like it'll fulfill the goal of balance, I think, and it'll make the game more interesting. Another point I'd like to add is that compromise always makes it more interesting. If a warrior had to choose between doing this skill or this skill, if they had to choose between overextending, maybe getting the kill and dying, or playing a bit more defensive and prolonging the game, but relinquishing the chance to get that kill.
You know, that's a good point. And actually, a lot of those individual class identities are there. I mean, you take the difference between, you mentioned Rogue, Death Knight, and Warrior. And I mean, Death Knight, well, at least on Holy, which is the spec most people play, it's all about, absorbs, like healing absorbed. You don't really see it in the big numbers, but you see it in the health pools and the healing. Warriors are about the big damage, the slams and all that. And Rogues are more about locking down.
Yeah, and it's like,
So I mean, the individual identities are already there.
yeah, it's like what I just want to go on to what Mohammed was saying. It's like one of the problems is that the community doesn't really know what it wants, and that's one of the biggest problems Blizzard had. It's like what we were saying. Each class wanted something that every other class had, but still wanted to remain unique. So it was like everyone was like, "Oh, say I'm a Ret Paladin, I need an interrupt," which personally I thought they did, so it was fine. But it's like every class is like, "Oh, I need an interrupt. Oh, I need some self healing. I need this," and then they go, and then the next post they complain about harmonization. All classes are becoming the same. So I think there kind of has to be that sort of difference between the classes. Not every class can have everything. Or classes need to be different. So you just need to balance classes around how they work with each other, not how they work on their own, which is kind of what I feel like has been happening for pretty much since Cataclysm. Every class started getting everything that they wanted, and it's kind of like what you were saying. We were wrong. People were saying that they wanted this. Everyone was saying, "Oh, we need this healing. We need these interrupts. We need this utility," but it's made the game much worse. In the sense, oh well, no, it's not worse, but it's kind of like less fun to play, so to speak, because there's just too much to look out for. There's too much CC to avoid. There's too much instant CC to avoid. There's
too much overall. There's just too much everything.
Everything, yeah.
Davis, you haven't gotten a chance to speak yet about Mohammed's balance post. Is there anything that you want to bring up, ask him, or questions, comments?
I don't particularly have any questions, but the most interesting thing to me, like the thing that really resounded with me, was when he was talking about how everyone gets the abilities they want, or it's something like that. Like everyone, and it's what you guys are talking about just now, so it's quite good.
Yeah.
So like that's the key thing, I think, is that like if I think back to like TBC, Warriors had a stun, Rogues had a stun, but Warrior stun was RNG, wasn't it? It was
Yeah,
like
it was
Well,
based on
if you don't include Mace spec, then there was intercept stun, which was relatively long, but yeah, was like a 30-second cooldown.
So like you had those, and then I mean there weren't really that many other stuns in the game. Like there were a lot of RNG stuns. I remember TBC being everything was RNG. Where you could get stunned by a mage because he had a 15% chance to stun you when he did fire damage to you or something like that.
Yeah.
And you can get stunned by a warrior just because he auto attacked you, and you can get stunned by you could get stunned by a rogue even when he auto attacked you. But I think the main thing was like rogues back then were like the stun class. They had more stuns than everyone else, and they could do them reliably whenever they want. And nowadays, like everyone has a stun. Is there a class that specifically doesn't have a stun?
Not really. And it's funny you mention that, because now it's like rogues were the class with all the stuns. Now everybody else has all the stuns. Now in order for rogues to compete, they want all the damage too.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the list just keeps growing, and it just keeps,
Yeah, if it keeps going like this, eventually every class is going to have
every
all
ability.
The stuns. They'll have all the CC. They'll have all the they'll just
the game's just going to become one Swifty macro, and then the match is over.
That's it.
Whoever can press that button the first, the fastest.
Right,
that's it.
Go.
Boom. Done.
So yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, Mo, what did you want to say?
Oh,
I can leave it to the end of this particular topic, so you guys can go ahead.
So I think that was the biggest key thing for me was Blizzard. In my opinion, if they wanted to balance the game and make it esports friendly and stuff, the key thing would be to reduce that kind of feel where everyone's like, I want this spell because this class has this spell. Well, all of us are now saying, okay, back in Wrath and whatever, when I said I wanted this, well, you can have it back. Just take it back, because I think it's gotten kind of ridiculous in that regard, and I think that has caused a lot of the problems where classes have become too homogenized. So the only real differential is, either the damage they do or one button they have, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes they have a cooldown that's better than other stuff. Because at the moment you can almost interchange a warrior and a rogue in a team, and I mean it doesn't really make any difference to the play style, at least the way I feel. Except rogues aren't as OP as warriors are, so.
It's actually one thing I just want to quickly bring up. One thing else that they ever need to do is cooldown stacking. Like, whenever people talk about, he's popping a Swifty macro, when I think about it as a warrior, how many abilities are you chaining into one macro? It's like one of my warriors is Orc, so I'm using Avatar or Bloodbath, whichever. You're using Colossal Smash, you're using Blade Storm, Trinket, Racial, etc. It comes Skull Banner. It comes up to like 6 or 7 abilities into one macro. That's where this ridiculous damage is coming from. These ridiculous scaling comes from one more. Whereas if we just sort of removed some of these abilities, I love Skull Banner because it gives you great numbers, but why does it need to be in the game?
Well, not even that. Why does it have to be a PvP ability? You know what I mean? It's a raid. It's a raid buff. It's a raid utility. It's a burn phase thing. It's cool for that. I don't mind it. But why does it have to be in PvP? I know they don't want to separate it, but it just doesn't have a place. It doesn't fit.
And especially that type of ability, which increases critical strike damage. That's not really something you can balance, especially when you can stack other abilities together. It just quickly gets out of control. If you give, for example, enhancement shamans right now probably have the highest burst in the game. If you give them Skull Banner, I've seen them do 300 plus K damage in 2 buttons, 2 globals. Like I've seen 150K from Elemental Blast from an Enhancement Shaman. How can you balance that? Like, you just can't. It just comes out of control. Even if it works fine, even if it worked fine for Warriors, you have to think about what they're playing with.
Mm-hmm.
They play with a mage, so Ice Lancers hit for 80K in a deep freeze. So, I mean, that type of ability just doesn't work when you stack other classes together that can also stack abilities onto it as well.
Mohammed, did you say you wanted to add something?
Yeah, Daedric made a point about like the community wanting something but not knowing exactly what it wanted. I mean, that's a good point, but it's still Blizzard's job to like
Yeah.
as a consumer and a producer. From that kind of perspective, it's still Blizzard's job to come up with something since people are paying them to do so. But like my point would be is again with the archetypes like. What I said with classes having to fulfill that archetype and then Blizzard designing those classes around that. I mean, and I said compromise. So I just wanted to give an example for that. So let's take rogues, for example. Like a rogue can come out of stealth with a garrote or a cheap shot and then into a kidney shot and so on. And then they still have that sticking power because they still they have another charge clone would be, Shadow Step. They don't have to necessarily use it, but it's there. And then they have a kick. So they have that sticking power, and they have that kick. They have the interrupts. They have the stun lock, and they have the damage. So instead of just giving them, plain old kick, which does the exact same job as pummel and rebuke, I mean, if they have those other tools, you can just, give them something slightly more different. Like, what if that kick would give something like a debuff to slow down the casting speed of the enemy player? For example, and if it landed mid-cast, it would give it more duration. Another example would be warriors. Like, say we remove the dead zone from a warrior's charge, right? And he can charge straight up to the target that he's sticking to. But instead of it giving a stun, it would be his pummel. It would if it's used under 8 yards, it would pummel the target. But if he uses it, he wouldn't have another charge to get to his other target. That's saying we removed the first tier of talents. I mean, that's the kind of compromises you want to get out there. Like, he used his pummel to stop that guy from casting, so it's all up to his teammate and his healer to to try and score that kill because he has to hobble all the way over there.
I mean, that's getting a little too what's the word? Specific. Yeah, but I do like the idea of giving classes their own identity, really. And I mean, you mentioned earlier, I believe Paul, it was you that said it. Warriors having 2 interrupts and stuff. I mean, look at rogues. I mean, they only have 1 kick. I don't think you can prep kick anymore. I could be wrong.
No, I don't.
You can't prep kick, but I mean, come on, kidney shotting a cast, vanish cheap shot. Yeah, you have many ways as a lot of melee classes to stop casts, not just kick. So, I mean, how do you get around that? I don't know, but it's just classes need identity, and it's funny. Like, I like to imagine Blizzard as I'm a parent myself, so I identify with this. Like, you have kids, like, we want to eat all the candy. And you tell them no, they're going to get sick, right? But they keep bugging you. We want all the candy. So then you just sit back and say, okay, eat all the candy. And then, an hour later, they're throwing up and telling you they don't feel good. That's kind of like what WoW is right now. Like, they gave us all the candy, and now we're like, nah, that was a bad
We don't want
idea.
it, yeah.
Well, with what Mohammad was saying about, compromises, that was actually how it used to be. For example, I remember in TBC, whenever I was playing my warrior, whenever I wanted to interrupt a cast, I had to stop doing anything because it was on global cooldown. I had to wait for the cast to happen. So that was me compromising. I'm not doing any damage because I'm literally auto-attacking, waiting for the cast. And there was a lot of abilities like this, especially for warriors in Wrath. Like, one of the abilities I really loved was Shield Bash, right? Shield Bash, exactly same as Pummel, same cooldown, but you had to equip your shield. It would use up a global cooldown for that, but doing it would give you an extra 2-second lockout had you got it. But if you missed, you lost rage because you had to switch stance, and you lost auto attack damage that you would have had because you're now with a one-handed weapon. there was a lot of abilities like that, which I call it's a risk and a reward. You're taking a risk, but you get a huge reward for doing it. There's literally nothing that I can think of like that anymore. You don't really choose something like that. The choice factor isn't there. I can choose to do this, which will give me a bigger impact, but I take the risk of it not working out, and then I've lost damage for it, or I've lost uptime for it. Same with like.
I don't know, man. Like the risk of dropping a Siphene randomly is you don't have it to eat your trap later on. Like that's
No, yeah, but at the same time, that's totally RNG. At the same time,
it's a. I mean, it is a joke. Like,
Yeah.
the
I know, I
Siphene's the
get
dumbest
what you mean,
ability in the
yeah.
game. I think. Like,
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That stuff like that, automatic CC like that is probably the worst thing they ever implemented. Same with it's not quite the same, but Warlock Seduce, the Succubus pet, not a big fan of that either. Like CC that you don't have to pay attention to, which just happens automatic. That doesn't need to be there. That's something they can remove quite easily.
you know,
without
it's
it being
funny you
too
mention that,
difficult.
and I don't want to interrupt for too long, but just a quick story. Like, it's really bad because sometimes when I play twos on my lock, I'll use the Succubus or the Succubus or whatever, and I used to try to macro it to where like I could mesmerize the focus target or whatever, but I quickly found out that it's better to just let it do it on its own.
Let
Like,
it do what it wants.
yeah, like it's better CC to let it automatically cast it than it is. I'm officially now a bad person. I don't get it.
We're using the Succubus pet. The Succubus pet
Well,
is
sometimes
it's the most annoying pet
I
in
know,
the world.
I know.
And the fact that it's autocast, it kills me inside. I can't even see it.
I
It kills
don't
me.
like it. I don't like it, but sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, right? So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's other stuff as well like that, like the monk Fist of Fury. You can't get out of it, and they can spin around and stun your whole team randomly. I mean, that's less different because it's not automatic. But as soon as you use it, what's the cast? It's like 3 or 4 seconds, and it just stuns anything that comes near it. I mean,
and the
stuff
worst
like
part
that
is if
I
you
just
trinket,
don't like.
you just
Yeah, you
lost
get
your
stunned
trinket.
instantly. Yeah, you get stunned instantly. It's like, JJ, sort of thing.
Before we move on to the next subject topic, which is pretty much kind of intertwined with this one anyways, I just want to remind everyone to go to pvp-live.com, bookmark the website, follow us here on Twitch, follow all of us on Twitter, and we would really appreciate it. Next topic, pretty much, like I said, kind of tied into the last one, is basically Eridan's post that he posted on PvP Live. I'm sure someone can link it to us in chat. 6.0 and beyond. I kind of want to go through each different topic that you broke down in there and kind of, talk about each one separately. The first
Jeez,
one.
let me pull it up. I don't even remember what I
Oh
wrote.
boy. Here we go. Well, anyway, the first topic,
This is going well.
the first topic was random battlegrounds, and you had
Yeah.
two suggestions basically: a separate queue for full pre-mades and 10 and 15 player BGs, and ability to vote kick players in traditional BGs. And now we're talking about random battlegrounds right now, not rated, so not RBGs.
Yes.
Eridan, do you want to go into a little more depth about each one of those topics that you brought up?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not a fan of random battlegrounds. I really am not.
No, you hate 'em.
The way they.
You really
I
hate
hate.
them.
I hate them. I don't. I just don't. I really hate's a strong word. I dislike them greatly, because of two things. It's not. It's just. It's not efficient for gathering the gear you want, which is what most people use them for. Some people like to play them for fun, which they're the most narcissistic people I've ever come across in my entire life. But yeah, basically what I wanted to gain from it is I mean, there's no hiding from it. There's bots and BGs. There's people that go into to troll and so an ability to vote kick players like you have in like 5-man random dungeons, I think would go a far way because, I mean, let's face it, the bots you have now, they don't just stand still. They engage in combat. So reporting them AFK doesn't do anything.
Right.
So, yeah, having the ability to vote kick with a cooldown, even I don't know how you want to do it, would be good for that. And also, yeah, I think a big thing is pre-mades. I used to play before before I played WoW. Majority of my time, I played Call of Duty, and I mean there was nothing like grouping up with your friends and having a full team of coordinated people to go, play in matches and. And eventually, you got sick of playing in the pub matches, and you went and did like rated stuff, And so I think it's a great stepping stone for getting more people into RBGs, making friends, being able to prove yourself to other people that you don't that may. When will the first bot get glad? Yeah, well, I don't know. Shouldn't
Yeah,
mention
it's
that right now.
it's actually interesting.
But yeah,
actually,
I think it's a good idea to have pre-made versus pre-made just because it's fun. You know,
Right.
there doesn't have to be anything
Yeah.
to attach to it. People don't want to play for rating. Maybe they just want to play like the old school, like server-wide Warsong Gulch. You know, like
yeah.
and just have that feeling.
I will say this. I guess I'm a narcissist because I actually enjoy random battlegrounds, but the problem with me is I have the lowest attention span ever, and I cannot stand waiting 8 minutes in queue. And it might sound so stupid, but I want, like, if I'm going to be playing a random battleground, I want 1 minute queues. And I don't know how they could fix that. I don't even know if it's fixable. I don't know what they would do about it.
The only way they could fix that is if they allowed like Horde versus Horde or Alliance
Right.
versus Alliance,
Yeah.
which they've mentioned that they don't want to do because it breaks like the lore aspect, you know, and
Yeah.
why the BGs are there.
I would
which
love
I could
it.
understand.
I would love
mean,
it, personally.
Yeah, it would
Well,
because you're
like-
never going to be able to control the population. I mean, they go where they want to do. They
Right.
you know, so whatever.
I think like I kind of agree with you, but I admit that I used to love random battlegrounds. Like I'm someone who played since vanilla. I grinded up High Warlord back in vanilla days when you literally had to play 15 hours a day for like 2 months, and I did that when I was like in college, and it was like horrible to do, but it was the most fun I'd had in this game.
I mean, I
But
used to love them
nowadays-
too. I used to.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the thing.
it used to be amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
It used to be the most fun, but now it's like it's just such a horrible mess nowadays. It's like people don't do anything in them. They still do the same things they used to do 8 years ago. Farm the middle, do nothing.
Right.
Don't do objectives. You have people who just go into troll. Like you said, bots. I think bots is a much bigger problem in Europe than it is in America.
They're pretty bad
remember-
here too.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad in
Yeah,
America. Yeah.
let me give you an example. At the start of Cataclysm, when you used to do AV because it used to be the best for honor, like I would honestly say about 30 out of 35 of the people in those BGs were bots. Easily,
That's
that
a lot.
would be the number. Yeah, it was literally out of control. Now that's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. Like it's still better, but you join a BG and there is bots in every BG you join, no matter what it is, because you know they get away with it. Even if you report them, they don't seem to ever go away.
Yeah.
But I have something to add about what you were talking about with the kickban thing. I agree with it, and I would like them to implement it, but there has to be a way of punishing people that use it wrongly. Like say someone got vote kicked out of the BG, right? And at the end of the BG, when the screen comes up and you leave the BG, say when you leave the BG, you get a screen that comes up saying, this person was kicked from the BG by this person. Do you agree with this decision, for example? And say people can say that, no, they didn't. They just press like a tick box, like yes or no, whatever. And then people
kind of
that-
like a karma system or like
it's
yeah.
sort of like that. And if people abuse it wrongly, then like maybe they just get longer queues or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, anything
then-
like that.
Yeah, I
Then
mean,
you have people who abuse that system, and
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there will
do we have
always
to
be
tick a
abuse
box
to-
about their decision
but-
on the other person's decision? You know,
Yeah, of
It-
course.
this
but there
person
will
agreed
always-
with that. Do you agree with them agreeing?
Yeah,
yeah.
but the thing is there will always be that. There will always be people who abuse something. But I don't know if you can just say, okay, we can't implement something because it will be abused.
Well,
Because
I mean,
then
the,
you
the,
would
the
implement
core,
nothing.
the key here is there has to be a better way of sifting through the legitimate players that want to BG and have fun and the players that are just there to bot honor. You know, like there has to be a
Yeah.
better way. Voting them or reporting them AFK does nothing because
Right.
they just charge into battle and they're there
That's
for
it.
the whole fight.
Yeah, before we get to Davis and Mohammad, I actually want to weigh in on this too. I think, and we kind of brought it up, at least Paul did. I think the main problem with random battlegrounds, besides the queue time, in my opinion, is players not playing objectives. I mean, that's it. That's the bottom line. That's what one of the main problems is everyone rushes in the middle, Warsong Gulch, for example, and they just go to battle, and there might be one player. There might be one player on that team that's playing objective.
Hey,
And
controlling mid is an objective in Warsong, okay? It's
Well, it can be,
really?
yeah.
I guess
really
it
is.
can be.
Honestly, it
Yeah,
kind of
Can,
is.
it
Yeah.
can be an objective.
Not, but
It
they're
is,
not
but
playing that.
Not,
They're
not
not
if
playing
no
like
one
that.
goes for the flag. If
Yeah,
no one
that's-
goes
yeah,
for the
yeah,
flag,
yeah.
then
It's just
you
middle.
fighting in the middle is
Right,
pointless.
that's
Like
right.
maybe they should just have like a even like a diminishing return system. Like in vanilla WoW, when you were grinding High Warlord, every person you killed had diminishing return on honor. You killed them once, you got 100% of the honor. You killed them again, 75%, and 50%, and 25%, and then you got nothing. So
I'm gonna go ahead and say that doesn't even matter. They just want to see the killing blows on the scoreboard.
yeah, I know,
You
but
know,
you could even make it so the fact that, well, this probably isn't going to work, but maybe you don't get killing blows if you're in a certain place for so long a time, or maybe just make a BG that satisfies that need. Like there isn't really a deathmatch BG.
Temple of Kamogu.
But I mean,
Well, that's a
like
BG.
this is all
the
coming
closest,
into,
yeah.
like this is all taking away from it being random, if you know what I mean. Like it's a random.
That's why I proposed a pre-made versus pre-made BGs. You know, like
But people are going to say rated battlegrounds is already that.
right. Now I have a counter argument for that, and I get onto rated battlegrounds. Oh man, my kids are really going at it. But
Fighting.
come back to me.
Okay. Davis and Mohammad, I think Davis kind of commented. Mohammad, do you have anything, suggestions or comments about random battlegrounds, how they can be fixed?
Random battlegrounds were really there just to, just to be a way to farm honor for the masses. I honestly never thought about them because I never really had a problem with them. I just enjoyed the AV weekend to level up in or get a full set of gear. I never really had an issue with them because like Paul, I started out in vanilla. I got to around field marshal, rank 13, and like I was used to just people standing at the AB queues on both ends and just while waiting for the queue they just hash it out in the middle or with the AV or Warsong. It was just a matter of fact. It was just the way WoW was back then, and I always got used to it. I don't really I don't have any big suggestions for it.
Oh, good. Paul.
Sorry, just want
No
to say
problem.
one thing. What if they gave honor in like a different way? Maybe you get some honor from arena, for example. So those people that want to only do arena, which there are a large group of them, could just do that and get their gear that way. And the people that enjoy BGs the way they are, because there's a lot of people that do, frankly, play rated battlegrounds, random battlegrounds, because they like farming the middle, they like farming honorable kills, they like doing that sort of thing.
Oh, of course,
so
yeah.
Maybe it's even better if you just split up these communities somewhat. Like, I'm not so much of a huge fan of that because I think Blizzard personally want everyone to do as much as all their content, so to speak. They want everyone to have to do random battlegrounds, but it's just a clash of styles. People want to do what they want to do, and they don't want to do what they don't want to do. So, or even like someone saying in chat, skirmishes. Why not that?
Well, allow me to make this suggestion. In random battlegrounds, people are just gonna do whatever they want to do. It's called random. But you have a war game system, which is kind of like BG skirmish. You can call people out to it. I mean, why not have an honor system in war games, which would make it then more attractive, so that you get honor not by farming kills in the middle, because that would just be organized manslaughter in the game. I mean, you get honor by fulfilling PvP objectives, and in a sensible amount, not something too big where farming it solely becomes viable.
Yeah, then you have the prospect of win trading and
But it's just for honor.
Yeah.
There's also
There's no
another
ladder or anything.
But
like
where's
that.
the honor in gaining honor?
No, the problem is you can buy things with honor. I'm not sure of their value right now, but it has so many implications where it'll cut people off from random BGs. You'll kill the queues there, because the problem with separating random, trying to get people out of random BGs is Blizzard doesn't want that to happen, because it's gonna kill the queue times. I mean, Jason's complaining about 8-minute queue times. Can you imagine 30-minute queue times?
Yeah, right.
When I was grinding High Warlord, we had to sit in 15-minute queues every single game. So I think the community would never go along with that at all. But the problem with the suggestion that you're making about war games is that people already have difficulty getting 10 people for a rated battleground system that they can queue for. Having to get 10 people and then finding another group to play against that also needs to get 10 people, that's just something people won't do. People in this game, frankly, are largely lazy. They want to be able to just queue something now. Like, you bring up a menu, you click the button, and then a minute later you're inside doing what you want to do. I think if they were going to do what your suggestion was with the thing, it would just have to be a queue system, and then you're just going back into rated battlegrounds again. Like maybe they just need to cut battlegrounds
And then
down in
people would
size.
sell they would sell spots on their team to
Yeah, yeah,
farm
yeah.
honor, and it would
But
kind of
like,
turn into a
maybe you
mess.
should just cut.
Yeah,
Maybe you should
but you
just
already
cut.
have that kind of thing. I mean, people are going to the bots. People are selling rated battleground ratings because you can get the same kind of gear you would get from Arena, the same kind of ratings, the same
Yeah.
kind of titles.
Yeah.
If I could just say that if you incentivize it more, I mean, you make it more attractive to have a PvP guild. Right now, there is no point to having a guild. You don't necessarily have to be in that guild to play with those players to get that rated battleground, the rewards from it. So if you gave something like guild titles, a title to a guild or so on, you'd make it more attractive for people to be in that guild. Secondly, you'd have more people trying to participate in rated battlegrounds, making war games a good way to practice. And if you get like 50, 100 honor a game practicing, it wouldn't be too bad, and it would be something so big that it'd be farmable.
What about this? Okay, here's my suggestion. What if the crafted gear was the best gear you could get to start out in the season? There was no honor gear. It was just crafted gear and then conquest gear. That way, if all you care about is arena and rated play, rated battlegrounds, whatever, you could just buy your crafted gear, gem it, work towards your conquest gear, and the people that enjoy random battlegrounds could just buy their gear and go do random battlegrounds. There's no gear grind. There's nothing. There's no reason to do it if you don't want to.
How would you control where the gear is used though?
Well, I mean, it's just crafted PvP gear. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like if you want to get better gear for your random battlegrounds, you got to go do arena and get conquest gear
Well,
Or rated
one of the-
battlegrounds.
or rated
yeah.
battlegrounds.
Right. Okay. Right.
One of the suggestions I had back at the end of Cataclysm was that when you joined Arena, you already had a full gear set for Arena usage, but as you did Arena, you gained the points so that you could use that gear outside of Arena. So say, for example, you wanted to do, like this could work in Battlegrounds as well. I mean, one of the biggest problems with Battlegrounds that I find is when you join and you're trying to gear up, especially this happens mid-season, late season, you just get outgeared and destroyed. That's not fun. You queue up, you get destroyed, whatever, you res and so on and so on. What if like with the random BG system, you queue up, you get inside the arena, you have the full gear on you inside the BG, you play up, you earn the honor to use it then in arena or outside of battlegrounds completely. Same with arena gear. That way you don't join mid-season or late season and feel like you don't want to do this because it's not fun because you just lose constantly.
Hmm.
At least that gives people a chance to have fun in this environment, and they can. I mean, this can be the same with people who like think they don't enjoy BGs because their only experience of BGs is joining in low gear and they're getting destroyed all the time. Maybe if you give people like, this is what it's like when you're fully geared playing against other people in full gear, and they're thinking, oh well, this is actually a lot more fun than I thought it was. Because what happens when you get full gear and you don't like BGs? Do you do BGs again? No.
No.
You never queue up for them again. So if you're joining up while you're in full gear and you're having the proper experience that you can have inside that, then you might go, oh well, I actually like this a lot more than I thought I would. I'll do this more often. Instead of how it is now, where you get full gear and you
I
never
mean,
queue up again
it's
until the
kind
next
of similar to the idea I had, but the difference being is I know like Blizzard just doesn't want to give people gear. You know what I mean? They don't. So
Well, it's not giving you the gear, that's the thing.
making it the crafted gear or whatever. Like, I mean, that's you still have to do a little bit of work to get it. You know. But yeah, I think it just needs to be a way to just let the people that want to get their gear, you know, because it's like let's just separate PvE and PvP for 1 second. I don't typically like to do this, but in PvE, you're gearing up to raid or whatever. You start out doing 5-mans. You're always gonna get justice points and valor points or whatever from those 5-mans. You can't lose at them. You're always gonna get them.
Mhm.
And if you have your group, the queues are pretty quick. You can grind up gear pretty fast. Sitting 8 minutes in a queue to lose and get 100 honor is just, it's madness. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate it.
I totally agree with you, but the problem with the thing of crafted beer getting the best gear, that works the exact same way as what we were discussing.
Mhm.
It would take people out of random battlegrounds. People just wouldn't queue up anymore because they wouldn't need to. That's the same thing as what we were saying, where we split them away, we split the two communities up. Blizzard wants people to queue random battlegrounds because the queue system simply, you need people queuing up to lower the queue system. So if you just remove everyone who doesn't want to do it from it without them ever having to play it, then I think you're going to see queues of like 30 minutes. I don't know if Blizzard would ever try that.
Mohammad, go ahead.
Yeah, could I just quickly reword what I like? I like Paul's idea a lot, but because it feels kind of close to the Guild Wars 2 model, so I'd just like to quickly reword what he's saying. What he's trying to say is you're gearing in reverse. Basically, you go into the BG, you're given the gear, you play with it, but if you want to use it outside for world PvP, for arena, for other purposes, you don't walk into the BG like a sheep going to slaughter. You get that gear, you work it, you use it, and then when you spend that on, you're paying to use it outside. It's no longer a loaner. So, I mean, that would be kind of cool. Like if you would walk into a BG, there'd be an armor, you'd pick your gear, pick your gems, you'd get it all ready, you'd play, you'd walk out, and then you get it. You buy it back with honor points. So I really like this idea.
It's kind of a cool idea. I could.
I just think that the difference between you having full gear and you having not full gear, like entry gear, like maybe you just leveled up or something, the difference between the both experiences is just massive. It's just way too big. You join up and you don't have fun doing it, and then you negatively look at this aspect of the game because of that reason. It's one of the same reasons why a lot of people don't do arena or quit playing it, because they were so like they joined up once, or they played a couple times and then they just got destroyed because they don't understand it, or they were outgeared again. And it's like you give this negative image of what you're trying to promote to these people. Like it's the same as like if I join BGs on a low gear character and I get destroyed, I don't feel like, oh, I want to keep doing this. I feel like this is a grind that I don't want to do, but I have to do it. It's like you're forcing people to do it. Whereas it's totally what Mohammad was saying. It is gearing in reverse. You have the full gear inside the BG, but as soon as you leave, you have your normal gear, whatever it is which you have, and you just buy each piece that you use in arena when for usage outside of it or in world PvP, etc., etc. So this just means that people don't have that experience of being totally destroyed because of gear, but they're still not getting it for free, so to speak. So.
We're going to move on to the last topic, which is basically a subtopic of Eridan's Arena Post 6.0 and beyond. And that basically...
Just go read the post. There's way too much to talk about. Just go read it. Leave a comment. There's a lot here. We just spent like 30 minutes on one section.
Yeah, I'm gonna. This is the last thing that we're gonna talk about, and basically it's something that we're kind of facing at the moment too. Is anyone trying to hold a tournament? It's kind of difficult for people holding a tournament because there's really no spectator interface. And this is the last thing I want to talk about for the podcast. But basically, Eridan, you brought up some good points about the spectator, how there's a lack of a spectator interface. And, basically the trials and tribulations that we've had at PvP Live throwing our Friday night face-off tournaments. Eridan, do you want to talk about that briefly?
Yeah, I mean, basically the way we're solving a problem is by, I've been restreaming a stream and we're doing all these kind of like broken things to make something work. When the problem will be fixed, and this ties into esports, it pretty much brings the whole show together almost, is that if Blizzard were to just put a little work and implement the spectator feature, I mean, everything would just take care of itself. And there goes the kids again. Terrible twos, man. My son's not digging what's going on. But
he doesn't agree with what you're saying.
He doesn't agree. Spectator mode. What?
Forget about that.
No.
Forget about that.
But yeah, I mean, you'd have player-run tournaments. You'd have, and I think the best way for it to work is only to work with war games. So yeah, he's telling me no.
No, guys, I think that's pretty much all we have time for today. Please go to pvp-live.com. Bookmark our website, follow us here on Twitch, follow us on Twitter, follow all of us. God, I'm horrible at doing that, man. I'm horrible at perspectives. Over here, follow us all on Twitter, and thank you so much for coming. Last shout out, Eridan, starting with you.
My kids.
Your kids, yes.
Shout out to my kids.
Thank
and
you
Mohammad, thanks for coming on the show, buddy. It's been fun.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Actually, going to Mohammad, do you have any shout outs that you want to say?
No,
Okay.
really.
Davis, moving on to you. Any last shout outs before we wrap this up? You
None
always
of my
have something
friends done
interesting, don't you?
anything. No, none of my friends have done anything interesting. None of them deserve shout-outs.
Forget them.
Yeah, just forget them. So shout out to Mohammad for making a good post on the forums and trying
Thank
to post
you.
something good on AJ.
Mhm.
It was good to read.
Thank
So
you.
it's especially encouraging considering you had just come back to the game. If you know what I mean, like it's not really
Right.
you've been playing for ages and ages. Like at the moment, you're just kind of getting back into the game and stuff like that, and you decided, hey, I want to get my voice out. So that's really cool.
Paul, closing with you. Any last minute comments or shout outs?
Just shout outs to all the people, all my friends who are watching. There's a lot of them in here tonight. Like Alexi, Dijan, Sally, they're all watching, and the people in my Skype chat called Tim and Friends, they're all watching, so thanks to them. Thanks again to Mohammad for coming, and especially, as people said, making a balance post when you're just recently back to the game. A lot of people would just complain that, oh, I've just come back to the game and I'm not quite up to speed with what everyone's doing. The game seems much worse, etc., etc. The game sucks. That's generally how people are like.
Mhm.
So seeing people like actually wanting to talk about balance and trying to improve the game and again, shout out to all of you guys as well, because we're doing this for totally free. We want to do this because we want to help improve the game. We want to help the community. So shout out to all you guys, and a shout out to everyone who's taking the time to watch us tonight. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah, shout out to everyone that's been in chat, and especially the people that talk. It's really nice to see people talking.
Yeah,
in
it
chat.
keeps things going. As always, I really don't have any shout outs, but thank you, Mohammed, for coming on the show. Thank you to everyone that's here with me, Airden, Davis, and Paul. And remember to check out Friday Night Face Off coming up this Friday again, 4 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. CET. And as always, the PvP Live podcast every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. CET. Thank you guys so much for watching, and that's it. I'm out.
Tell your friends.